around 2:05.
Maybe so.
Well,
And they took us down.
Yeah, that's
what
right.
I,
That's
what
right.
I was wondering is, I think that was almost exactly 40 minutes
Oh,
after
right,
we
right.
started.
That's correct. That
And
40-minute.
yeah, and so Zoom had, at least some accounts have a 40-minute but I thought they were extending that out for other accounts as well. So I'm not sure, but that's what I just thought after I realized for a few seconds it wasn't me.
No, Dan, you're right. I've actually heard that a couple other people I know, not necessarily in a college university setting, but have had that 40-minute shutdown, even when they thought the program had been extended. So it's obviously a bug they haven't really totally managed.
So, Susan, I think you were in the middle of talking. I don't know if you remember exactly where you were in that.
Well, I just know everybody was smiling, so that made me happy. So when you all froze, you were smiling. It was delightful, actually. I don't remember where I was. I think I was talking about just the small joys that you get and the leadership I'm finding from unexpected places. I think a lot of times, at least in my role, I look to the same people for leadership and guidance, and the crop has shifted. So I'm seeing colleagues and students step into these spaces that it's phenomenal to watch. And I was in my garden all day yesterday, so I'm like adding fertilizer, right? I'm getting everything ready to go. And I see the same thing for the summer. So really trying to take advantage of folks' interest and offers of assistance and grace and seeing what happens.
So can I ask, one of the things that we talked about is that there needs to be flexibility. When possible, we really should be promoting opportunity. Has anyone given thoughts to how to help faculty, students, and offices sort of develop reasonable timelines? Timelines that, when possible, can get them to points of success. I think a number of people mentioned the idea of the writing phase, and maybe even to the point of, getting some manuscript ready for submission. But timelines that also recognize that maybe randomly after 40 minutes, even though you have a pro account with Zoom, it decides, no, we're not going to work anymore. Has anyone sort of started to talk with their teams about how to encourage aspirational, but honest and respectful timelines in terms of what can be done now and during the summer?
We're just starting to have those conversations. I think that, Billy, your point of really being cognizant of our own personal standards and our faculty standards are really important. So I've had a lot of conversations with my faculty colleagues about this isn't going to be business as usual. So think broadly about the options that are available to you. What I've been saying, or I find myself saying often, is that piece, but also give yourself a little bit of space to be in more dialogue with your student researcher, see what they want to learn, where their focus is, and it's all individualized. So even though we have, a rubric for assessing summer research, I've kind of chucked that out the window and really want folks to focus on what's doable and where they can focus their time. I was talking with our staff this morning, and I said, sometimes I sit in front of Zoom for 10 hours and my mind melts and I get nothing done. I would rather that our student researchers spend a shorter amount of time and are much more effective and efficient, as opposed to doing things as we normally do.
Let people give me some thoughts to this.
Well, I'll be honest, and I'll probably speak, I'm guessing, for Daniel and maybe some of the others, as somebody who, again, has that split role of, part-time administrator in my office and faculty member. I'm happy to be here and kind of listen, and I'm curious what other people are doing, but I have just barely gotten myself to a comfortable place with my classes and with my advising. All the dates and everything we changed, the one thing we didn't change was when we're going to register and when students have to have their majors and minors declared and our advisees. And I had a freshman seminar last year, so I have 22 sophomores that I've been trying to work with this week and last week. And so these are all the kinds of, you asked great questions, Billy, and I would love to like probably sit on you for all of next week, because maybe then I'll be ready for some of this stuff, but I'm curious right now. I'm just listening. I don't, I have every question you ask. I'm like, yeah, that should be on my to-do list.
Well, actually, because there are a few more questions that I do want us to discuss, but on the time frame, we're probably going to slow down a little bit with this to give people a chance to do things, but maybe come back in a week or two with some of the discussions that we started off earlier to see what people did, because we really should be using this proactively. I cannot begin to tell you how sort of annoyed and frustrated I was for during the first few days of this, when it really dawned on me I had failed so miserably to sort of think through what can be done and what should be done when you hit disruption. Now, this disruption is like unlike anything any one of us has ever dealt with before, but we always deal with disruption. And we're always dealing with sort of setbacks. And I definitely hadn't been proactive enough. So I do want us to come back to some of these questions that maybe we can't answer today, but maybe in a few weeks we'll have a little bit better sense on it. There was something that was said very early in our conversation that I was hoping we could address. And that is, there's of course a focus on our juniors and our graduating seniors, but we do have a lot of lower level students, and a lot of these efforts and these opportunities really are about growing through the experience and really maybe starting in that first, second year and really kind of maturing through this process so that you become more of a collaborator as you get towards that graduation stage in those great situations. Have people started thinking about how to help their lower level students reach out? Because as you just stated, it's very fair. We're all trying to just get caught up. And I am now convinced tomorrow morning at 7:30 in the morning that I will miss half of my class because I put a password in and none of them are going to know how to use it. So, I'm just looking for the text messages that will be coming through ad nauseum. But what sort of approaches are you guys doing to sort of help those lower level students reach out? Because if they just reach out to a faculty and say, I want to do research, the obvious answer is going to be, yeah, I can't now, But if they reach out maybe a little more proactively, or they figured out ways to sort of engage, maybe there would be more reception so that those students don't also lose the summer.
I would turn that around a little, I think. Because the students will go to faculty unless they'd really like to get involved in research. And just as our conversation has been, many of us are still thinking in our traditional patterns and, well, I can't do research right now. But I think, and what I'm looking for is finding ways to remind faculty that there are other strategies. And one of the things I always try to encourage new faculty, because we know that they're just way too busy to get totally engaged in research, is to utilize students in searching the literature and getting the literature together, and maybe trying to get faculty better informed about what they can do now when they really can't be doing the hardcore part of their research that could involve students. The only thing I can come up with is literature. And maybe proposals.
Yeah, I think Donna said it earlier. If you just come into the idea of research where what you are doing is the data collection and not thinking through those other parts, then you're really just one piece of the research. So that's a great observation where a student can actually volunteer that. I'm interested in doing research. I know we have to be virtual. Could I be involved and maybe meet with you once every other week? In terms of a literature review that I'm doing, do you have some suggestions of where I can start? It's a great observation.
And I'm a psychologist, but my primary hat is program director. And what I notice when we do have our showcases and we send students to conferences and whatnot, that very often that final product is a presentation. Yeah. And it doesn't always take that final step. Now, course-based work does to the paper, but the written part often gets lost because they did the research, they got the poster, they got the presentation, and their academic career ended. And so maybe somebody had said it earlier too, re-emphasizing that writing. Half a paper can be written by the time we start collecting data.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, I saw Susan put it in the chat for like an online journal club. So I had already been kind of thinking about how to use fellow students to help facilitate this, because we have a grant for student leadership development. And so I was supposed to have funding this summer to have a upperclassman student who would be getting their second summer of experience on our campus, which is pretty rare to be able to get 2 summers, working with younger students to help develop them. And that she would have worked on a leadership development plan and stuff like that with her. And a lot of those things were leading journal clubs and helping the younger students engage with literature and those kinds of things. And so certainly if she has this opportunity to do this summer, doing a lot of the kinds of things that we talked about, her developing her skills, but also helping me bring the younger students along, those are certainly applicable even in a virtual setting. And so I think that those are reasonable ways to begin to go about it. And I would also say with Joanne, I mean, I'm an immunologist. I taught human infectious diseases for a while. So, I'm looking at this in a slightly different perspective. I'm pretty damn sure we're not going back to normal in the fall. And if we do come back to normal, I'm pretty sure we're not making it through the fall semester without going back to the same situation we're in right now. That's my professional opinion, as close as it can get. But I'm struggling to convince some of my colleagues that is going to be the case, and that this is not just a temporary disruption, that they can choose to shut down research and ignore those students until next semester, and then we can play catch up. I just think it's going to be a longer period of time for that. And the sooner we can get people, even though everybody's overwhelmed, the sooner we can start getting people to at least spend 1% on the back of their brain thinking about, how do I make something accessible to younger students? How do I begin to incorporate those students? How do I rethink what that research process looks like, or what research development looks like for my students? I think it's going to be important, and I think that it's going to be of necessity in the long term rather than the short term. But I just don't know right now how to really get that started.
I was just going to piggyback off of the journal club statement. One of our biology faculty members, actually, she's starting a online virtual journal club today. And so she's starting before the summer to go ahead and generate that curiosity, to get that momentum going. And so she has various guest speakers, whether it be some colleagues from CDC or what have you. And what they're going to do is they're identifying various articles around COVID-19, since that's such a hot topic. They're going to provide that information in terms of links and information to the students, and they're just going to get on Zoom and just chat and talk about it. And so they're going to do it at 6:00 in the evening on Tuesdays, and it's open to all of the students across the board, just so that like I mentioned, that momentum can go ahead and get started before the summer comes, and just keep the students engaged.
Yeah, one of the other things I'd really like to see is, I think our campus is not going to do a virtual poster session. I just think that we don't have the bandwidth right now to get it done, would be my take on things. But I am looking at ways maybe where the student seminar, we used to have a lot of department seminars and student public presentations that were really important in generating enthusiasm amongst the students. And a lot of that student communication, of trying to figure out how we get those restarted in a virtual world, and keep those sustained, because I think that is just as important as sort of those one-day showcases, as a sort of week in, week out opportunities to listen to another student talk about what they're doing.
So we have about 5 minutes left, and I wanted to really go to the last question, because this may not be directly pertinent to you today, but it is definitely going to be pertinent to you before we're fully out of this episode. And that is the face-to-face. It's going to happen. It may be happening now. Some campuses have minimal amount, other campuses none at all. But we are going to definitely have, and kind of as Lance suggested, sort of ins and outs in terms of what are permitted, when they're permitted, and how they're permitted. And that's going to be a changing metrics over time. Are there ways in which we can do some of this work safely, face-to-face? And are there ways in which we can advocate for some of this work to be done safely face-to-face? And again, that may be 4 months off before you start to transition into that conversation, as your campus starts to come back into, a in-place brick and mortar environment.
You know, Billy, I don't feel that I have any power or influence over those decisions.
No.
And I think that's the part I struggle with. And I guess I'm not the only one, because you have the governor's order, then you have the president's, response, the university president's response. Then we have a vice provost for research who's doing his best, to keep everything alive, whether we're talking about fruit flies or we're talking about rats and mice or whatever it may be. And so that's a really tricky question, because there's some places and spaces where I think that folks could do research very safely and they'll be fine. If they want to wander through the woods by themselves, I think that's a better option than going to the gas station or the grocery store. But it's a violation of the governor's order. So it's tricky. That's a really tricky question.
No, this is not to suggest that we're going to be the ones dictating the rules. What will be is people provide guidance. Or when other people are looking for clarification of what that means. Okay, we could just leave that for later. Guys, thank you very much for coming out. I'm enjoying these immensely. Again, we'll probably take a break for at least a week or two, as sort of many people have suggested. There's a lot going on, and that means that we also need to be caught up on our things. For those that are able to do the symposiums in the coming weeks, fantastic. For those that are completing, like Donna is right now, wow. For those that are going to be able to support summer research programs in different ways, excellent. For those that cannot, for different reasons, understand that that's there. Whatever we can do to sort of help mitigate beyond this stage to a next step is going to be great. And then Lance, I hope you are bloody wrong in terms of coming back in the fall.
I hope I am too, but one of my colleagues just sent me a paper that was done by a group in the UK, and they did modeling. And their model predicted that if we did everything that we were supposed to do, social distancing, closed schools, everything, that we would reduce the number of cases by 40%, shift the number of, or shift the peak date, and then a huge spike would come in September and October as if we did nothing at all. That's what their model predicted. And that's one model, and I hope it's wrong. But I also have my own concerns, and you know me, I would much rather be pessimistic and be pleasantly surprised than be optimistic and smacked on the forehead again.
Well, and either way, we have to be proactive. We can't just wait for it to happen and then just see how we're going to respond to it. Guys, have a lovely Monday. Keep up the great work. Great to see you.
Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Charles. Really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Hi, Joanne.
Bye-bye.